Tonight we are now going to be talking about the latest episode of PM 2019 titled The Pie That Became a Star, or the P, whichever way you want to go at it. The Pie, I think it is. But
P.
The P, I'm sorry. I knew it was P, but I went to Pie for some reason. The P that became a star.
I just call it Cleffa.
When Satoshi and Go learned that the sky in the Johto region suddenly turned pitch black and morning stopped coming, they head there to research the matter. During the research, they're told that it seems night has permanently fallen ever since a girl named Kirara that they encountered in the park met with a mysterious Pokemon. Satoshi and Go work on unraveling the mystery alongside the Sinnoh region's Pokemon League champion Shirona, aka Cynthia, whom they ran into by chance at the historical remnant museum they went to for research. So let's get into this review for the night. And obviously this is a very major one because it is once again bringing back another character that actually was already shown off a couple of weeks ago, but now we're going to be seeing her for the first time interacting with Satoshi once again in this current generation. And that is Cynthia's return in this episode, and how involved she is in this episode. All of that stuff, we are going to talk about it right now. So let me give my brief opinions on this week's episode, and then we'll start breaking it down and share everybody else's opinion as well, like we normally do. So in my take personally, I found this episode to be really, really enjoyable. In fact, I think I'm really happy that we're starting to get like this style of episode, because for what I wanted to see with Cynthia's character, I'm so happy that they kind of did something that has always been a part of her character, and we're seeing that still continue throughout this episode here. The personality and the character and how they humanize Cynthia in this episode. This is a common thing within the series as a whole. This isn't something that Journeys does. It's brand new and whatnot, but it's just nice to still see that consistency with Cynthia's character here. From the treats, even though it's not ice cream, it's still treat related, to just how she interacts with the little girl, Kirara, as well as like her conversations that she shares with Satoshi and Go, as well as even talking about the things that she does outside of just being a Pokemon League champion, and explaining why she is here in the first place. Because I thought this episode in my head was going to be residing in the Sinnoh region, because there is a section in the Sinnoh region where you find all these unknown, and I thought in my head, oh, that's where we're going. So to my surprise, when I got into this episode to find out we're actually in the Johto region and Cynthia also happens to be here too, I thought that was actually really cool. I like that these characters are not just simply these over-the-top like figure statuses that people need to look up upon. They can just be as human as everybody else and just do their own daily things that they love to do, like with Cynthia here, just simply wanting to learn and research about the unknown and learn more about them through the remnant museum that she was in. So I really like that concept of the episode with Cynthia's character. She might not have been the big focus, but she still provided enough in this episode, in my eyes anyway, to where she genuinely didn't just not steal the show, but also was still fun to just watch. Now, the main focus of this episode is based on the little girl that you see here, Kirara, and the lore, well, not the lore, but per se the history and the backstory about her and her Cleffa, and the tragedy that accompanied that story, which is very heartbreaking to see. And I'm very happy that even like, say, early X and Y days, and even more prevalent in Sun and Moon, and now even showing up here in Journeys, the series has really started to adapt these storylines and talk about the concept of death and life and what it means to move on and to accept that sometimes these things do have to happen, and we have to understand and accept the reality that it is, and have to find ourselves to move forward. I like that this little girl was the big focus of this episode, because we got to see her, we got to learn about like what she did, how close she was to this Pokemon. And the thing that really sold it for me the most was when the unknown came in and they actually showed all of the reasonings as to why this girl was so connected to this Cleffa. And when you see the history of her life just play out while she's watching it before eventually giving a hug to the Cleffa and then saying it's okay, I'll be fine on my own now. I'll see you later. And then that's when the morning returns for the folks here in this Johto region. Like all of those hit in the right notes, man. I really was a big fan of that. And once again, this is something that I believe is the most powerful part about the series that I wish they had done more, is to be able to connect and understand them. Because yes, they're still magical creatures, they don't exist in the real world, but the concept of death, the acceptance of moving forward and saying farewell to those that are no longer around is something that most of us can relate to. Especially, I think this episode will hit most hard with like those who have pets, who've had them since the day they were born and grew up with those little creatures and then had to see them go. If you were one of those folks out there, like I was with my dog when she passed away, that's why I felt like I had such a deeper connection with this episode, is because it was something that I could relate to and I can completely understand why she felt the way that she did. So overall, from beginning to end, in my eyes anyway, this was a very enjoyable, watchable episode. I loved how every character played a role. There was maybe one part that I really, really disliked and honestly kind of ruined the mood for me for like a couple of seconds. But amongst that, though, everything else in my eyes was absolutely incredible. I really did enjoy it. It wasn't anything groundbreaking per se, but they did what they needed to tell with their story. They used the characters that I believe were handled perfectly. Go was handled good. Ash and Pikachu were great too. Cynthia as well, in her involvement in this episode, I thought was also incredible too. Now, one little nitpick, this is not the one I was talking about before, but just a little nitpick. I'm a little sad we don't get to see where Cynthia goes next. However, I understand that they had to end the episode the way they did, because honestly, after the way that scene ended, you kind of just want to have it end there. You don't want to just like continue pushing the narrative forward. You want to end it when the story is at its peak. And I think that's what they went for with this one. And I do believe that they handled it nicely. So I'm a little bummed out, though, we don't get to see where Cynthia's going next and, continue setting up. But sometimes we don't necessarily need that all the time. And just keeping things the way they are, like what we see here in this episode, can oftentimes be a good thing. So, yeah, that's just my take as this week's episode. Personally, I liked what I saw. Once again, just one minor complaint. But it can be however you wish to take it, but for the most part, I can't wait to see where the story is going to move next. And I really hope that with that winter special that we're going to be seeing in December, I think they announced it, or at least that's what they said, the winter time, we're going to be seeing Cynthia come back. Because honestly, I believe in my eyes, she's my favorite character so far in this series, man. And that's such a big thing. I don't know what it is. I think it's just Cynthia's just so great in this episode. I just want to see more of that. I like that she wasn't champion of Sinnoh Cynthia. I like that she was just simply Cynthia. And I think that's the best aspect about this episode in my eyes, is that she doesn't need to be seen as this grand champion. And sometimes that's just not something necessary. And the writers knew that, and they just went with it. And I'm just glad that it went the way it did. So if I was to give this a rating, personally, in my eyes, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. This was a really solid episode. And that's the best I can say so far. I'll probably, once we all get our reviews and stuff out of the way, I'll probably go and talk with you guys more about other things that I just maybe want to establish and talk more upon, and even bring up the bit that I really didn't enjoy. So I'll pass it to any of you two right now. I don't know who wants to go next, TSS or Tyrone. Which out of you two would like to go next here? Well,
I guess I'll go next.
Alrighty then. So TSS, I will let this go for you, buddy.
All right. First of all, agree with KG here. Fantastic episode. Really emotional. There's a few things I want to bring up for this episode, though. At the very beginning of the episode, when Sakuragi tells that there's a Johto region and there's a endless night going on, Satoshi kind of does like a joke saying if it's going to be night for a while, then when are they going to have breakfast? So
yeah, it's a nice little jab there.
Then,
it was kind of funny, but I also like that it's true.
But what's crazy, but what's crazy about that is that Kikuna then responds by saying Satoshi's right. It's going to mess up their life rhythm, and it's like, yeah. So that was pretty cool, because usually with Satoshi, he usually just says something that's off the wall, and then nothing happens out of it. But I do like the fact that was telegraphed like that. I did like that. Also, throughout this episode, Satoshi and Go's interaction was really good. Like, there was the scene right when they were walking down the street, and before they got to the old man, saying, they're saying, it should be good morning. It's the morning time, and then it's like, no, it's like good evening. And then when they get to the old man, and Satoshi says like, oh, good evening. Or sorry, when they get to Kikuna, they say good evening. And it's like, well, whatever. It's like they don't even know. But then the following scene when Satoshi and Go have what they call lunch at night, and it's like Satoshi was saying, like, oh, it's very weird to have lunch at night. So I think like I said, but those little kind of moments that Satoshi and Go have really made it believable, more believable story. You really get a connection, and I think in terms of like real life chemistry, they nailed it. They totally nailed it with the dialogue. One minor complaint I do have to say, in the scene where Shirona brings out the donuts, in the box they look more like a Western donut, but when Satoshi and Go take it out, they look more like the thinner style that you would find in a Japanese Mr. Donut. That was kind of a little weird animation oddity. But aside from that, that was just me. You know, that's just me nitpicking on this. Also, I did like the fact that the unknown that appeared with Kirara when she wished for night spelled out night. So that all the unknown.
Nice detail,
I know, right? And it was kind of crazy. But then when Go says, "Oh, I have a question for you," it's like, well, why wouldn't you break the night and make it the morning again, make it light again? And then she says no, and then you see all then you see the night unknown come out of nowhere and completely like bring up the cloud, and then that's when the whole fight starts. And I did like the fact that they created like these shadow Pokemon of the Pokemon that they had, but the great thing was that they were equal in power, which I think was a great touch. It wasn't showing like, oh, we're gonna make clones that are more powerful. No, they had the exact same power, and I did like the kind of battle interaction. But Shirona or Cynthia outsmarting the other Garchomp, that was pretty fucking cool too. So I think like I said, that battle was more stylistic, but I did like the way that they handled that, because it was kind of like, oh, Kirara doesn't want it to do that, doesn't want it to do that because she doesn't want night to end, because she wants to make sure she can find P's star. So I thought that motivation was pretty cool. But after the unknown get defeated, then you finally get that flashback. Then you have Kirara and P like go through the history and go through the memories, and that, like I said, it meshes so well. Also, I will disagree on KG here for one thing. They didn't need to tell what Shirona was doing next, because when they were in the museum, Satoshi already established like, oh, I can't wait to face you in the Masters 8. When they get there.
I did forget about that.
Yes, she did, because they did mention that they didn't have to do it twice. They already established
that would have just been a weird
because
moment.
Satoshi specifically said, "Oh, you're in the Masters 8. I can't wait until I get to that level."
Yeah. Okay. So never mind. I'll retract that.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So that's why it was done that way. But I thought, like I said, and also credit to Go for figuring out, okay, it's the unknown that was doing it. like I said, it's showing his intelligence in this episode too. So like I said, between the character interactions, the storytelling, and the flow, this one easily gets in the 9s. I'm going to give this one a 9.1. Very good.
All right.
Very good episode.
Okay, so there you go. And Tyrone, I guess that leaves you, buddy. I have to hear your opinion. What'd you think about this week's episode of PM 2019?
Oh, all right. So if I'm gonna talk about this episode, I obviously have to bring up a 1 hour and no, it wasn't 1 hour. I think it was about how many minutes was it? I want to say about 70 or 80. I can't remember. But I gotta bring up the almost 80-minute the 80-minute elephant in the room that this episode draws heavy inspiration from.
Oh, I see where you're going with. Yeah, that's something we talked about as well in the
Let's talk about Pokemon Movie 3, The Spell of the Unknown. Obviously, this episode draws dangerous inspiration from it. But I want to point out one thing first before I get into that. It's, to me, that when Pokemon Journeys runs into any type of, like, kerfuffle and they need to hit heartstrings, they do this thing where they default to a little girl plot. Because little girls hit heartstrings in Pokemon, like a lot. Bonnie did it, but obviously Bonnie had a whole arc in XY. In Journeys, we get, like, the girl and her Feebas with the Milotic thing. We get Kaharu's clone. All of these episodes wind up being really good, but they always wind up really good because Ash and Go aren't the primary focus. So it's almost like Journeys has to push them out the way in order for it to be relevant. So we run up into these situations where Journey might as well be called Pokemon Chronicles 2.0. Ash and Go are in this episode, and I'll partly agree with TSS. They got good interaction, but I'm gonna be honest, they're not really needed. They're not really needed. They are not necessary for this episode. I feel like Cynthia, since she's an archaeologist, and she even says in the episode, I've studied the unknown. I've been studying the unknown. I feel like she could have put 2 and 2 together. She seems pretty smart. She even knew how to talk to the little girl. She was like, yo, can we watch the stars together? Yo, I brought donuts. Like, I feel like if literally Cynthia had been in that spot before Ash and Go were, she would have figured all of this shit out before. Go solving it does make sense because he is like a puzzle solver, but Cynthia is just naturally good. Now, I will say this, and I agree with KG. They actually did make Cynthia really competent without making her like, oh, she's the champion of Sinnoh, the legendary champion. Notoriety is something people push a lot for some reason in Pokemon, especially with Ash since he gained his champion rank in Sun and Moon. But notoriety is like a tip of the iceberg in the vast world that is Pokemon. So seeing that Cynthia was just a regular archaeologist versus being the champion of Sinnoh was a very nice and welcoming touch. It shows that characters have lives outside of just Pokemon battling. And we get to go into those lives here. And Cynthia being an archaeologist is the reason that she's brought over to here why she can study, which makes for a very good narrative plot as to why she's here in the first place. Also, Sinnoh and Johto have a little bit of a connection anyway,
With
so
that Sinjo ruins, whatever it's
yeah, so this is fine. It's absolutely fine that Cynthia's here and she's competent. The problem? Cynthia's always been competent. You can't really introduce Cynthia and make her look bad, honestly, because Cynthia, the last like very memorable scene I've seen of Cynthia was when she fucking spanked Paul in front of a live studio audience. Y'all saw that, right?
Yeah, that was in the middle of
DP. No, she fucked with the ice cream. That's what people.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the level of competence she has as a trainer. She beat the shit out of Paul. Like,
chat says don't jinx it.
So there's no real there's nothing really you can do to Cynthia to really inhibit her. Most of the characters that have been brought back to Journeys have usually been brought back with some weird premise behind them and then downplayed in some way, reduced by nothing more than their character traits or something like that. Now, Karina, I am a little...
Iris.
Yeah, Karina, Iris, yeah. Though Dawn. Now, with Cynthia outsmarting the illusions, that kind of weirds me out because she used the sandstorm to blind them. But I'm like, they're illusions. Do they need to see? They don't need.
No. See, the one that
They're
was
not
getting
real.
blinded was the unknown. That's
Okay, fine, yeah, sure.
it's a sandstorm.
Now let's bring up movie 3. Oh boy, movie 3. Okay,
I know, it
so
sucks, man.
The
Pokemon
Jobbers.
movie 3 is my favorite movie. It's my favorite Pokemon
And mine
movie,
is.
period. And TSS's least favorite because he's on some type of drug. But like, movie 3 very much uses the plot of Molly, who loses her father and her mother and goes into a straight up rage, and thus the unknown react to it and build an entire illusion world made out of crystal. Molly becomes a Pokemon trainer, she fights Brock, Misty, and Ash, but she's overpowered because she's using illusion Pokemon, and it's only until Entei and Charizard fight that she realizes what she's doing is wrong. Having a fantasy world doesn't mean shit if the fantasy you're creating is hurting other people. We gradually build to this. Molly doesn't believe that anything she's doing is wrong in her perception. Even when Delia, Ash's mother, tells her that what she's doing is wrong, she doesn't believe it because she's selfish. She's a little girl. I mean, it's natural for her to make these selfish demands because this is what she wants. So naturally, as the plot progresses, she doesn't realize what she's doing. She thinks this is just a game. But it hits Ash personally because he's losing something while Molly's gaining back something. The two are opposed. In some sense, you can believe that Ash is the antagonist in that movie because he's opposing what otherwise would be Molly's story, where she's the protagonist. So when you flip it, the problem only starts to arise when Ash and Charizard are about to fucking die. At this point, Molly realizes that what she's doing is hurting people. We get a gradual length of her realizing these flaws, and then it's her who tells Entei to stop. She's the one that stops the battle. Ash doesn't beat Entei and Molly goes, I might as well get my shit together. No, it's literally her looking at the ramifications of her own actions and gradually growing as a character. When she realizes that what she's doing is wrong, she's able to grow and realize and accept the fact that her parents may be gone, but if she loves Pokemon enough, she herself can gain a new family, a real family, a family that isn't made of illusions. It's her character arc and development. It's the one time where an antagonist learns something and is able to implement it in the movie. We only get about 20 minutes of this, so we don't get any time for any of that shit. Literally goes like, yo, you should probably just accept Cleffa's dead. Then the little girl just snaps and goes, fuck you! And then the unknowns fucking attack. And Cynthia's like, oh shit. Sandstorm and scale shot. Oh, okay, that's over. And then she goes, oh shit, I should probably get my shit together. Like, it all happens so fast. These narrative beats happen in a fucking breakneck pace. You don't get time to really absorb what's going on. And does that make it bad? Absolutely not. Especially when she does that little thing with Cleffa. I will admit, that's sad as fuck. It hits an emotional string. But we got here so damn quickly. We don't get the chance to absorb any of it. We don't know enough about Cleffa. We don't know enough about what she lost. We know about it only because at first she starts wanting to stargaze. But at the beginning of the episode, it shows her wanting to stargaze. We don't get any sense of her slowly like being upset about it and causing this problem where she believes, because at the beginning, she believes that nothing she's doing is wrong. She just loves the fact that she's gazing at the night sky, and even she brings her mother into it every time. But nobody, like, we never see it like get to a point where she goes through this arc where it's like, oh, wait, what I'm doing is fucked. During the whole battle, it doesn't even cut to her. Cynthia deals with the problem, and that's another problem. Since Cynthia deals with the problem so quickly, Cynthia's way too powerful for this particular scene. Because once her Garchomp comes in and wipes everything out, the conflict has ended in the little moments that it had to begin. No one ever stops and sees this like oh, this is the little girl that's causing all of this. Oh, she's the one behind it. Oh, she suffered this much because of it. She's upset. So by that time, it all happens in a breakneck pace, and it happens towards the last few minutes of the episode. You don't get the chance to really like absorb the narrative here. And like I said before, Ash and Goat don't do anything. Yeah, they do a couple of attacks, but they're only there to pretty much prove that the Unknown have thought of an unstoppable combo. Just mirror everything that Ash and Goat are doing. But by that time, Cynthia comes in and just sort of cleans shop and it's over. Whereas in, like I said, in the movie 3 example, it's up to Molly to realize what she's doing is hurting people. She's the one that goes, oh, wait, my actions have consequences. Fuck. Like, I don't know. Just having her get beat up and then suddenly, because it all happens literally right after. Once Garchomp wins that little skirmish, I guess, she just literally, the shadows go away and she goes, yeah, I should stop nighttime forever, huh? Okay. And then it just gets done. It's just done. We don't get any gradual version of that. Now, I know, again, people are going to come in and say, well, Tyrone, you're comparing a movie that lasts a lot longer with a higher budget to an episode of Pokemon Journeys, which is weekly and doesn't have blah, 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 blah. But if the episode has the exact same narrative storyline and is following the same narrative beats, involving the same type of character, which is a little girl that lost something and thus wants it back and goes by any means to get it, even if it involves hurting other people, then I think I'm allowed to do a little compare and contrast. And unfortunately, it's because I know movie 3 exists, this episode gets docked some points. Now, is this a bad episode? No, it's not. It actually does a really good job of subtlety when it comes to Cynthia. Like I said, out of all the characters that have returned so far, I think Cynthia weirdly has done the best, but that's only because it's Cynthia. Like that's not hard. You can't fuck Cynthia up for real. So, yeah, kudos to Journeys for doing a decent Cynthia cameo. But, like I said, just, I know full well what this episode's based off of. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, because movie 3 exists, I know this will never measure up to its standard. And I know that going into it. It's just so jarringly, obvious what it's based off of that I have to, sit and go, yeah, that movie 3 light, I'm giving it a 7.5.
All right.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not, like I said, I want to stress that it's not bad. I just know movie 3 exists, so that docks points from this.
Yeah, and that's just something that I feel, what a series, as we stated before,
similar.
What a series this old, there will always be those instances, but this episode, I feel, out of all the episodes we've watched, it was way too by the beat with movie 3. Everybody who had watched this episode felt from the very beginning they got to certain parts of the episodes this is beat for beat movie 3, except shortened to fit into an episodic show.